2023, and I'm Kevin Horn. I'm here with my Tuesday intrepid co-host David Darnell, and you guys had a pretty good show last night. And
Yeah, it was fun to have Ben on and talk a little bit about what's going on in the new year and all that stuff.
well, we already have some news, which is amazing because you'd think most people wouldn't even have time to have news occur if they were, just paying attention to family and eating food and stuff like that. But no, we have some, especially today, which is the first day of session of the new Congress, the House of Representatives, which the Republicans ostensibly have a majority in, a very thin one. And the news that is hit is, of course, that they are now on the third vote for the speakership. And as of now, the candidate who is at least in the lead and was presumed by many to be the one that would win has lost his bid in the third vote, and that's Kevin McCarthy.
Is he moving the boxes back out of the? Is he moving his boxes back out of the office now, or?
Yeah, it was that the little made for TV moment of moving stuff from the minority leader's office to the speaker's office this morning might have been premature. There's quite a debate going on. In the first two votes, he got 203 votes out of 222, and then the third, but the same on the second vote. In the third vote, he got 202 votes. So he actually lost one of them. Byron Donalds from Florida decided to vote for Jim Jordan. I actually watched right after the first vote. There was a lot of discussion and debate and people saying, what does this mean? And speculation. But Jim Jordan gets up there, and for the second vote, in advance of that one, he nominates for that second round of voting Kevin McCarthy. And he gives a pretty good speech, like a very concise, here's what we're here to do. This is what we need to focus on. He had three clear, salient points. It's ones that we've heard. It sounded like a great plan of action. And then he concludes by nominating Kevin McCarthy. And what happened on that third vote, on that second vote, is that more people actually then, in the first round, 6 people voted for Jim Jordan. In the second round, after he gives a speech on behalf of Kevin McCarthy, more people then started voting for Jim Jordan.
19 or something, wasn't it?
On this third vote, it's apparent somebody was speculating there was about 19 votes for Jim Jordan, and Jim Jordan is popular with some of the folks that, because I've heard them speak about this, is popular with some of the folks that are saying they're not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy. People that have been supporting Andy Biggs. So, and Andy Biggs, I think, got 10 votes on the first 2 rounds. So it's interesting that you give a speech for someone else and you actually end up getting more votes for yourself when you say you don't want the job. But that's where they're at. And you have to get 218 votes. So if Kevin McCarthy loses more than 5 votes from Republicans, then it's impossible for him to win the speakership. Now, the last time this happened, where that you had to go to a second ballot on a speaker vote, was 1923. And what happened then, they recounted.
Was that when Nancy Pelosi first ran for speaker?
That's right.
She didn't quite have the support that she thought she had?
It was actually just upon Nancy Pelosi's first plastic surgery. So that was 1923. But she's fully plasticized now, completely.
I'm sure Joe Biden was there to vote as well. I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Maxine Waters.
He doesn't remember it, but
he probably doesn't even know who Nancy Pelosi is.
Yeah, no, he has. They show him a picture. Do you know who this is?
Speaker. What is? What does the speaker do?
Yeah, that's right. Well, so, but the person who did eventually win the speakership stayed in the running all the way through multiple rounds of voting. And somebody was saying that's Kevin McCarthy's strategy right now, except it's not going in his direction. I don't know how long they're going to go on holding rounds of votes today, but they will recess. The Democrats have all remained completely united behind Hakeem Jeffries, who is
Oh yeah,
he's the
the
guy who,
obvious choice.
yeah, yeah, and Nancy Pelosi, of course, is effectively retired. She'll probably resign from Congress
Yeah.
sometime or sometime this year, so that a special election can be held, so she can get back to spending time with her husband and her husband's boyfriend or whatever. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm just joking.
Yeah. Well, they've got a thriving stock business. I think they need to take care of. So.
Yeah, that's right. Although it'll be harder to do when you don't have the insider information that you can obtain as Speaker of the House. So I don't know.
She'll have it.
Yeah, she'll probably still have it. That's right. And so there's the Democrats.
I'd never heard the name Hakeem whoever before I read that somewhere today. So I just thought it was funny.
He's actually an election denier, but of the officially Democrat approved 2016-17 variety. Yeah. He said that President Trump was completely illegitimately elected and cheated and all that stuff, and repeated that over and over and over and over. Actually, there's like an entire minute video of him of his tweets and him saying it on TV or on the floor of Congress. So he's a prime candidate for upholding election integrity, as you can tell.
How come people don't like McCarthy?
I got to watch some of the debate. I think that, and not just on the floor of the House, but also on the sort of the talking heads. I was watching some of the Newsmax. I think that there's a lot of people who are saying they don't actually trust Kevin McCarthy and don't know where he comes from, where he stands on issues, so that they can count on him to do the right thing. And there's some people that are pretty upset with how he's had to engage in compromises and facilitating things like the $1.7 trillion omnibus porculus bill that from a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, they know exactly where Jim Jordan is from, and they say they do trust him. But Kevin McCarthy, they're just not sure. They're also saying that the other knock on him that I've been hearing is that he is an establishment figure, that he's been in leadership at some level, like a whip or a majority leader, or one of these things since 2009. And they're like, okay, long enough, right? Now he's, of course, been climbing the ladder, waiting behind others, which is how it's traditionally happened. And I will say this, he did work his butt off to get people elected. Part of the reason why he's in this problem right now is because not as many of them got elected as they thought might. And if that were the case, if he had another, say, 10 or 15 Republicans in a real wave election, he wouldn't care about this at all, because the ones who got elected in districts that were pretty tough ones that required a lot of attention from the Republican leadership in the House, he was giving that attention. When he came out here and actually raised money for and plowed resources into the 3 competitive races for Congress that were targeted here in Oregon, and won one of them. But having said that, in a way, he's kind of paying a price for not having gotten more Republicans elected, because then the 19 that are voting against him probably wouldn't matter, or at least a portion of them probably wouldn't even bother doing this if there was no chance of stopping him from getting elected. But there have been some compromises, I understand, the rules that they all agree upon. And they're getting rid of, and I don't know why this would be a compromise or why anyone would have to compromise to get to this, but ending the Democrats' favorite proxy voting, where you can just sit at home and vote in Congress and never go there. The other thing was participating in committee hearings via Zoom, so that the Chinese Communist Party can hear every detail, and you can just sit at home, or or join President Brandon down in St. Croix, where where you're relaxing and enjoying mild weather as snowstorms slam the country and kill people. That's what you get from Democrat leadership, but they're at least getting rid of some of these things. I don't know the full laundry list of the rest. I don't know if they've actually talked about it. The one thing I will say is that the people, it took me all day of on and off listening to this stuff and reading things to get some idea of exactly what, besides not being the never Kevin McCarthy folks, some of the folks that won't support him, what else do they want to see? And so far, I don't know if they've done a great job at communicating that. That's just my gut feeling. Like the general public doesn't understand it. And so a lot of people are only today getting to hear some explanation as to why they are not, why he's not getting the support that he assumed he would get.
Interesting. Yeah. The reason I asked is the former chair of the Oregon Republican Party, Herman Bartschiger, came out in support of Kevin McCarthy today. So it sounded to me like, he's a guy in the know, and I was kind of wondering why people didn't like Kevin McCarthy. So,
yeah, and his endorsements are magic. It worked great for Betsy Johnson.
Well, she got 8.5%. The vote for what, 12, 14 million bucks. I mean,
yeah, that's right. It's like thousands of dollars of a vote.
I mean, according to Herman, she was the only chance.
Yeah.
So, and he had special knowledge. He told me his people, or I forget how he put it, but his special data said that she had the only chance. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how well that bodes for Mr. Representative McCarthy.
Yeah, that endorsement actually could. Maybe he was trying to get Kevin McCarthy to withdraw his bid for the speakership by endorsement.
Oh, yeah.
Very clever,
It is very clever. Yeah. I didn't think about that because Herman's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. By the way, this is happening in the context of a larger conversation in the Republican Party of the Republican National Committee chair position, which there's going to be a vote in, I think, what is it, 3 weeks or something, in or less, in Washington I think it's in Washington D.C. And the so Ronna McDaniel, I saw her actually come. She finally, after really not saying much, about a week ago, started making many appearances on the media, talking to folks and explaining why it's just misinformation. People are getting incorrect information about what she's doing and how the RNC is doing under her leadership and this and that. And her challenger, her prime challenger here, because I think that Mike Lindell is running, but I don't think he has a lot of support.
No.
And
I don't think he would be a very good choice either. He's it's not his gig.
No, you have to know, at least if you come completely from the outside, you'll actually know nothing about the entire hierarchy, which you must be familiar with. It is a representative form of government, and I don't think he knows anything even about like a local county party, much less the ins and outs and the people and the politics of the RNC. But the other person who is challenging Ronna McDaniel, Harmeet Dillon, the National Committee woman from California, she does know the Republican National Committee. She is a National Committee woman from California. And she definitely has some moxie. I think that's very fair to say that she been a frequent person to see on Fox News, Newsmax, even other media outlets. Certainly, somebody who's been in the news, fighting against the left and fighting for.
Well, she's got some stuff done, and if I'm not mistaken, Mark Musser, out of California, works for her firm, if I'm not mistaken, and he's made some great inroads in election integrity through the court system in California. And I think he just recently had another big victory. But it's kind of funny about Dylan. I think she'd be a decent choice. I'm kind of always, when you said McCarthy's been, in a leadership position or been around since 2009, I kind of generally think, yeah, let's put somebody else in there. And I kind of generally think when someone doesn't have any significant accomplishments, to measurable accomplishments to post up when they're running for a re-election, that maybe somebody ought to be given a shot, and I noticed that the mouth breathers there in the Oregon Republican Party PCP group, the official group, are all aghast and shocked that Harmeet Dillon at one time was apparently a board member of the ACLU. And
no, I read about that actually,
yeah.
and it would be interesting to hear, and hopefully at some point we'll get to talk with some of the folks representing Oregon that will vote on behalf of the Oregon Republican Party at the RNC. But I do know I actually looked that up, and it had more to do with the fact that they were kind of targeting Sikhs. And she's affiliated with she is of Sikh, SIKH, I believe is it spelled. And
well, we occasionally come down on the same side with the ACLU.
Back then, I think that actually used to be more common, and
it was more common back then, and it does occur at times still, as a matter of fact.
Occasionally,
yeah, occasionally, yeah. I mean, if you're advocating for American civil liberties, how can you can't be on opposite sides all the time. Broken clock, you got to be right at least twice a year. But yeah, I don't see what people did a decade ago. I don't see why that's an issue. I mean, I brought up the fact that Donald Trump was in fact a Democrat and gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to Clintons. He was a Clinton supporter. So
yeah, and I think
he's not anymore.
No. Well, the other thing is, I think that in light of what's been happening the last 3 years and all the stuff that we've learned, what they could do to a president, what they can do in using them, weaponizing, as Jim Jordan said in his speech today, weaponizing the federal agencies against the American people and using it to manipulate elections and our public discourse, like we are learning has happened with Twitter, 100% slammed up. So we know all that. Aren't we all civil libertarians now that we've seen what's been happening to cancel people?
I sure hope so. I would sure hope so. And I'm kind of surprised. I guess I'm not surprised, but you would think the ACLU would be all over what's happening at Twitter. But
that's the big disappointment, right?
It's been hijacked by the left a couple decades ago, and it's probably never gonna come back around. But I'm sure Harmeet Dillon's presence on the board probably did more good for the ACLU than has been in many, many years.
Well, and so what's fascinating is I went and I looked up what Harmeet Dillon said when these criticisms were levied at her years ago, back when she was competing for different positions within the California Republican Party. And she said that the reason why she took interest in and supported the ACLU is when she was at, it's the same place that Laura Ingraham went. I'm just forgetting the name of the school. And Dinesh D'Souza. So the school that they went to, They all went to the same school. They actually were contemporaries of one another. And Dartmouth. She was involved with the conservative. She was, I guess, the editor-in-chief of the Dartmouth Review. And when the school was trying to silence some of the people that were writing for the Dartmouth Review, the ACLU helped them back then fight back. Now, that's a disappointment that the ACLU doesn't do that as much now, but I thought that was actually a reasonable answer. But you're right. I mean, she's had some go around in California dealing with some Democrats. She was also chair of the San Francisco Republican Party, which in a city where I think there's 7% Republicans, that's a pretty tough place to cut your teeth. Anyway, without going off on too much of a tangent, the reason why I mentioned Harmeet was because one of the stories that I saw at the same time that I saw this review of Kevin McCarthy is that Harmeet Dillon says a lot of Republican leadership needs to be fired. That is, I think maybe what she is talking about isn't that Republicans that are bad people that happen to have been in charge, but that maybe, as you were saying, maybe they're status quo people and need to be replaced by somebody who wants to move the needle in a different direction. And I think that's what she's saying in this article. So I posted that. That's what people are saying about Kevin McCarthy. And that would probably capture as best I can what I was able to glean from the various commentaries today as to how people are feeling about some of the folks that have been in charge. And I think some of it's disappointment over the failed red wave, the red trickle, I think you called it, right?
Yeah. The red ripple.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, hey, I mean, it is, I mean, it was a win. And I'm going to call it a win. And we had wins in Oregon, so I'm going to call that a win too. So
yeah, and that's what Ronna McDaniel said when she got on. She said, "Look, I need to remind people we did actually win the House," and she went and explained stuff. Which sometimes, she's I think on her third term, she would be going for a fourth term as RNC chair. I think that's right. So she was 26. So 2017. 2019 and now 2021. So 2023, she's going for a fourth term. And she was, when you're in there that long, sometimes you forget to explain to everyone what you're doing. So she's out trying to do that. I guess we're going to learn more about that in the coming weeks. The one thing we did learn about, which is fascinating, is that after 3 years, is it? No, 2 years. After 2 years, since January 6th, the Capitol Police Union says that there's still no answers as to why January 6th, the security situation was what it was, why the breach happened. And
they don't know why the police opened the doors and let everybody in.
There's no answers for that. And, presumably a new Republican Congress is going to get down to the bottom. But they said that they are still unprepared if another incident happens. And I don't know, are there any groups that might want to engage in such an incident for real, going forward, especially with a change in power in the House of Representatives where they might not care for what those folks do? I don't know. Antifa maybe, or somebody.
Yeah. Antifa might want to, try to, maybe kill off some, and Antifa and Bernie Bros could team up and maybe try to, shoot some Republican representatives who are playing softball or something.
Right. Well, actually, Steve Scalise, I'm looking at him on the screen right now, kind of on mute. He made a speech. Of course, he is somebody that people are trying to say he would make a good speaker. He doesn't want the job, but he got shot for real. And, and so
by a leftist.
Yes, by a Bernie supporter, avowed Bernie supporter. So this is kind of real stuff, but I think that's what a lot of folks are saying. They don't want just the same old. They actually want to make real progress and get down to the bottom of get these answers, right? Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but I was looking at the videos and it looked like to me that the police let the insurrectionists, the unarmed insurrectionists, into the capital so that they could topple the most powerful country on the face of the earth without guns.
And Wookiee outfits. Yeah.
Yes, with Wookiee outfits. Yeah. Yeah. We were talking, everybody's listening. We were talking, Kevin and I were talking before the show, and I laugh every time somebody says the January 6th insurrection. I mean, can you imagine, everybody out there, what people in Bolivia or Nicaragua or what people like that think when, our leftist media calls what happened on January 6th, which was, not even really much. It was less of a riot than we saw, 150 straight days in the city of Portland. But when it is called an insurrection, can you imagine what people in countries that have actually had their government overthrown by violent means, what they must think about that? I mean, they just must shake their head and laugh.
Yeah. One of the countries I know that a friend of mine talked to years ago in Iraq, Ukraine was actually sending troops to Iraq to be part of the coalition of the willing. And this friend of mine talked with one of them, and, they were saying, yeah, sorry, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in our politics back in the United States. There were the riots, remember, and people marching around places like Portland. And the guy said, we would love to have your brand of
yeah.
chaos.
Yeah.
I think that statement is more prescient than many that I've heard, because we're talking like 2005 when this guy said that. And I think that remains even more true for people in Ukraine today. Wouldn't they take, people in Wookiee outfits, Wookiee outfits over what they got now?
Yeah, there's plenty of good. I'm not sure how good, but there's plenty of democratic and despotic alike regimes around the world that would welcome that kind of insurrection.
Yeah, no doubt.
But you know what? I bet most countries do not train their police to open the doors to protesters and potential rioters.
They probably don't, and they don't also say to pretend that actual dangerous armed militant groups that are terrorizing people, they don't pretend in other countries like those groups don't exist. And I'm just going to skip to a piece of news which underlines that point. So other countries don't need to invent fake militant groups. They have real ones, but they also don't pretend that the real ones don't exist, like President Brandon did. Antifa, through one of their Twitter accounts, has taken credit for a Portland bank arson that they said was an act of revenge for an Atlanta autonomous zone arrest. As you know, these autonomous zones are places where people go and they pretend to secede from the United States and then walk around with long guns and scare the police away until finally it breaks down into local despotism, and then they push them out, right? That's what's happened the last several times. Andy Ngo, who, by the way, is his lawyer is Harmeet Dillon, of all people, reported this, and I just posted it. And, can this get corrected? Are we going to have the status quo where Antifa runs around and does things like, I believe it's a federal crime to go, went to a Bank of America and lit it on fire in Portland. And last time I checked, that is many years in the pokey federal crime if you're caught for that. Right?
It used to be. I don't know what it's like these days, Kevin, but it used to be that was, it was generally a no-no. When you brought that up in your meeting, what you're going to go out and do to change the world, lighting banks on fire, it usually didn't go over so well.
No, and this was a bank, Hawthorne Boulevard Bank of America. It was just before 3:15 a.m. on December 31st, 2022. And so it's a real thing, which apparently hasn't made it into the regular news cycle around here very much. They've taken credit for it. So real terrorists, are we going to see a change in what what happens with the Republicans taking over the House of Representatives with regard to this kind of thing. I know we won't see a change here in Oregon. That's not going to happen.
Right. Well, my guess is if Republicans take over the House and people in Wookiee outfits show up without the MAGA hats, I have a fear that the Capitol Police will let them in.
Yeah, and they'll say, and the Speaker's office is right down the hall on the right. Yeah. Go get him, Tiger. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that doesn't.
The door is not bulletproof.
That's right. Yeah, it's. By the way, they did take the gun metal detectors away from the entrances to the House chamber. You know that they put those up after January 6th to make sure that members of Congress wouldn't bring any metal objects into the House chamber, even though, that was. They said that they were accusing members of the Republican side of the House as being insurrectionists in cahoots with people and violent activists and all kinds of crazy stuff. So go figure. There are a few things changing already. Well, back here on the home front here in Oregon, a little bit more news. I did want to mention that the Oregon Health Authority Director, Patrick Allen, who was shown the door recently or resigned because Tina Kotek needs to go and hire somebody that might even be worse. Patrick Allen is getting a job, and he's taking a job in New Mexico with the New Mexico Department of Health. Apparently, the people of the New Mexico state government cannot read and have not done a background check and looked him up on the internet. I know.
Obese, alcoholic, non-medical, educated
non-epidemiologist, right?
Yeah. Fired from job in Portland, takes job in New Mexico, takes the head health office job in New Mexico. Man, you can't make this stuff up. They
need to call people in New Mexico and say, don't blame us. You can find these things out. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Apparently, there's no news media in New Mexico, or nobody really gives a rat's what about how the health department of New Mexico functions, because Pat Allen didn't do a very good job. I mean, the OHA is the biggest suck of the general budget. I think, well, probably besides PERS, but it's the biggest line item on our budget and in the state's budget, if I recall correctly, and he just, it's horribly run, like everything else that was administered under the Kate Brown administration. I mean, you have to look at Kate Brown and you have to go, you're a horrible executive. You hire horrible people that do horrible jobs. And, even you hire people who are even really good at stuff, and somehow you make it so they can't, like Oracle, you make it so they can't do their job. And it's just, it'll surprise me when she shows up in some high level executive position somewhere. I'll just have to ask myself, does anybody ever, do they ever think about this? Anybody ever vet these people?
Apparently not. And speaking of wanting to know what people think about someone or something, the Oregon Department of Transportation or the Oregon Department of Traffic Jamming wants to know what you think about paying to drive on I-5 and 205. Apparently, the agency's public comment period is going to end in 3 days on January 6th with regard to tolling. And I just wonder if the system that they use, which you can find in the article, I just posted a link to where you can leave comments. I wonder if they have a system that automatically filters out expletives and middle finger pictures uploaded as part of the comments, because I'll bet they get a lot of those. And because people desperately hate this idea, as you know, from the polling. And that doesn't appear to be slowing them down at all. And of course, this is another fabulously executed program by Kate Brown Shirt's Department of Traffic Jamming.
Yes.
It's-
Yes. That it just, I haven't thought about it, but it reminds me that we have a change in leadership at the top post in the executive department of the state of Oregon. And man, we're going from somebody who's incredibly incompetent to someone who is very unfortunately very competent at what she does,
yeah,
which is advance the leftist agenda.
she's
And
diabolically competent. That's the way I
she,
put it.
she is, yeah, she is. She's a taskmaster, and she gets stuff done. And as I said before the election, there'll be actually little need for a legislature with her in office. I mean, she's run that whole house for nearly a decade, and she will be. I'm sure she will continue to run it. I don't know who the speaker is going to be, but the speaker's just basically going to get pieces of paper from the governor's office and throw it on a podium and say, "This is what we're passing."
Yeah, she went from speaker to dictator. I mean, I guess that is a step up, and so now she's going to be casting lightning bolts from Mahonia Hall upon the peasants spread across the state. Unfortunately, enough of whom were fooled into voting for her, only so that they can now experience things like what it's going to be like if they go faster on climate action. What will that mean for Oregon? And there's an article that you can read in the Bend Bulletin. Some of it appears to be behind a paywall because they didn't want too many people to read the story. But Oregon's Global Warming Commission has taken a look at what it might take to go faster and calls them, and they've invented a new word spelled TIGHGER actions, which any acronym that's that long and has that much crap embedded in it must be horrific. But here's what it stands for: the Transformational Integrated Greenhouse Gas Emissions Reduction. That's what it stands for. And they are going to have things called policy levers to reduce the floor area of homes, to require new homes to use less energy, and to use congestion pricing in urban areas on the use of energy and, of course, on traffic, as we just read. So, see, I'm connecting the dots here. They have a whole set of plans for you that they didn't really talk about or run on in the election that they're going to unleash on all of you. And and this is something that you need to let other people know is happening. And I just saw a fantastic meme. This is from the Oregon Catalyst, and it says the liberal blackout reality, and it's a series of memes actually, but the first one's hilarious. It said, "What did socialists do before candles? Question mark. Answer. What did socialists use before candles? Electricity. Yes." And then there's the headline: Californians.
What did they use? What did they use before donkeys?
Yeah.
Cars.
That's right. And Californians told not to charge electric cars days after gas car sales ban in California, which they've now done without a vote of the people here in Oregon, simply by diktats of the all-powerful bureaucratic state. Oregon utilities warn of power outages to prevent wildfires, including in Portland's West Hills, which I can attest to. Fortunately, I got a natural gas backup generator installed, so when everybody was out of power, I wasn't, because I was going to go some nice, clean-burning natural gas to make sure that the electricity didn't go out, while everyone else sat around wondering how they were going to keep their homes. So some humor that I think helps bring out a real serious point. And I should also mention that Oregon, it was noted last week that the power outages in Oregon of Tuesday last week were the worst in the nation. And that's a KGW news report. So we have achieved yet another fantastic milestone by
we are
being
yet
worst
we're
power outages.
yes, we are yet again at the top of a bad list.
Yeah, to get to 114,600 customers without power is one heck of an achievement. And that's the same grid that they're saying they want to make you all dependent on. And by the way, I should mention, they also are looking forward to dramatically increasing your electrical rates. The latest news on this is that
Pacific Power is,
Power,
yeah.
is that who you have?
I have Pacific Power for all of my properties in Southern Oregon. And then my properties in up in the valley are Portland General Electric. So my biggest loads are up north, probably 10,000 a month, and I probably $5,000 or $6,000 a month down here. So I'm tickled pink.
Yeah, because you instantly make 15% more money, right? No matter what.
Well, yeah, productivity increases 15%, as soon as you pay more for your electricity. That's the magic of electricity. Electricity is to the left very magic because it just comes over wires. It doesn't emit any fumes, no greenhouse gases. It's quiet, except for a humming transformer now and again. And boom, it just shows up and does its job. And it's just completely, zero emission. Great. I mean, everything works great until the trees fall down on the lines. Those lines, which really should have been put underground years ago, decades ago, by the serving utilities. But the serving utilities have a government protected monopoly. So if everything falls down, they just send people out to fix it, and they jack up 15% to their customers. We were without power from 4 a.m. Tuesday till 8 a.m. God, I think it was Thursday or Friday. So we were out 4 or 5 days down here. And we don't have natural gas where I live.
Right? It's propane if you have anything, right?
Right. Or as far as generators are concerned, it's either propane, diesel, or gasoline. In my case, it's gasoline, and you can keeping a couple of houses going, and that's not even really mentioning the business stuff down here, but just the couple of houses that I had to keep going, you can burn up $150 in gas over 3 or 4 days. And I don't think I get like a refund. I don't think Pacific Power has got anything where it'll pay for the gas because they're all their power lines were laying on the ground because they're within 100 feet of trees. And
yeah, and they're actually sitting back idly by as power sources here in Oregon are eliminated, like hydroelectric dams, the coal-fired plant, which they demolished to make sure no one could, accidentally in a crisis.
Retrofit it.
Yeah.
Retrofit it to that horribly expensive and extremely dirty natural gas.
Yeah, and of course, so that they can all be excited about the day several decades from now when there's actually a tad bit more solar and a wind power and a lot more dead birds, by the way, from the so-called alternatives. Well,
bird choppers.
Bird choppers, exactly. We'll cover the state with bird choppers. So the U.S. Oil and gas president, he's the president of the U.S. Oil and Gas Association, Tim Stewart, said that the industry is actually going to boost their production this year to keep gasoline prices steady through 2023. A feat that he said the private sector may manage in spite of the Biden administration. In other words, he's defying the Biden administration, which, and please note everyone that doesn't know this or tell anyone who doesn't know this, the Biden administration is trying to make it harder for the oil and gas production to be boosted while there's an increase in demand. And somehow that's led to higher prices, dramatically higher prices. Who would have thunk that?
It's an economic anomaly.
Yeah, right. That higher demand and lower supply would actually cause prices to go up. No one even knew that. I think they're studying it at universities across the country to figure out why that happened.
Somebody should write a book.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, it doesn't comport with Marxist ideology, and they can't figure out, well, how is this happening? So I thought that's some good news. We should be happy that somebody's telling President Brandon to stick it as they increase the energy supply. Hey, last couple of stories here before we wrap up. And they're just ones that I just saw kind of flash traffic here. We interviewed someone who is with a group that is trying to put forward some initiatives and referenda to get it on the ballot, some school choice initiatives. And we covered those in some detail a couple weeks ago, I think it was. And it's a pretty interesting story because they may actually now begin gathering signatures. It looks like that it's that these two ballot measures may actually have been granted. At least one of them, I guess, has been granted a ballot title and is getting out of the court challenges that the teacher unions have put forward. So something to look forward to and maybe get involved with. On the other hand, I'm sorry, but there's some bad news too. The open primary measure for the 2024 ballot has gotten a ballot title from the DOJ without much of a challenge. And this one is where they want to make it so that it doesn't matter if you're registered with a party or not. You can go ahead and run, and it'll be like the top two vote getter system, so that, you can end up having like two Democrats running against each other in many places and no Republicans. And so you can have no choices.
Yeah.
But it's IP16, and they're circulating that right now. It's been rejected at the ballot box repeatedly, several times. And so it is an attempt to change Oregon's system of voting. There's also rumblings that there's going to be a ranked choice voting thing that could make the ballot. So we'll have a complete, cluster here going of election integrity reforms, none of which are going to make our system of voting more reliable and trustworthy. In fact, it's probably going to be the opposite. Then people are going to be like, well, why should I even vote? I got,
it's going to do nothing to restore. It's going to do nothing to restore balance in Oregon. I mean, there's no balance right now. We're a one-party rule, one agenda state, and it'll do nothing. It'll do nothing except squelch the rather large minority in Oregon. I mean, Oregon has a fair-sized minority.
Yep,
it's
right. Which I think, okay, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming to the ballot, but you're going to probably have to fight for the things you want to see, fight against the things you don't want to see. And then that's on top of what the legislature and Governor-elect Tina Kotek is going to do to you, which I just mentioned a bunch of things in store for you.
Yeah, I am not looking forward to this legislative season. I can't imagine what's going to happen in the state of Oregon with her at the helm. I mean, well, we know what it's like with her at the helm because she's been at the helm. The good news is they don't have a supermajority, so that's good. So there'll have to be some Republican participation in those things that are constitutionally mandated to have more than just the majority vote. So that's the good news. Bad news is they can't walk out anymore.
No, or at least provided that the change that's made to the Constitution can pass muster legally. I don't know if it'll be challenged at some point, but I don't think you're going to see people walking out, which means that they can just run right over the minority and pass whatever they want for the most part. So expect that no matter how close the 2022 election was in so many races, and it was very close, we didn't win as many as we had wished or hoped for, but the close calls in these races, the message the Democrats got from that is they love us and they want, and the voters want us to do more of the crap that made the elections very close. So go figure. I guess all of us can't just say, okay, let's go back to governing and stop putting pressure on people to do the right thing and campaigning for the right ideas and against bad ones. And we can't really just throw in the towel and say, well, we're not going to bother trying to get more candidates to run for stuff. That process starts now. And there's going to be some school board elections. And
we have an election. Yeah, we have an election coming up in May that is as important as any election in November.
Yep. You're right. Well, that's a wrap, David. We really that was a whole bunch of news, and we've only been through one working day of 2023. So,
well, I guess we won't run out of things to talk about for the remainder of the year, will we?
No, there's going to be a lot more stuff. By the way, I recommend everybody take a look at JP Sears and his summary of 2022.
I heard that.
It was.
I heard that it was good. I didn't see it, but I heard it. I was in the same room when it was going on. It was pretty funny.
If you go, he goes month by month. The two amazing things I found were the stuff that we actually might have thought was important a year ago, like in January, and then the stuff that was insane, but we've already forgotten about it from like the summer. It's unbelievable. It's like now I know why I literally feel like we're on a roller coaster that just keeps looping around. And when we do this show, we just sort of like take a snapshot and then say, here's what happened today. Boom. And then whoa, here we go.
Yeah. Here's what happened in the last 3 hours.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, and folks, stay tuned because stuff may happen in the next 3 hours and certainly in the next day. We do not know who the Speaker of the House is yet, but we may know more soon. We'll check it out. Anyway, have a good night, everyone. Please share the show with everyone you can. Help us spread the word because there's a lot of folks that don't even know that they can get the word right here, the ground truth, from the likes of myself and Mr. David Darnell, multiple days a week. And tomorrow we'll have Sunny and Don on, should be on for the next episode of Captive Audience. Have a great night. Thanks for joining me, David, and see you the next time we're on.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you,
Good
Kevin.
night.